Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Not For Nothing. I am here with God, you've become like a local staple of Connecticut. You've been tattooing. Well, you know what? Let's explain who you are and where you work. Start with that.
Hi, I'm Sean OHara. I own Darkside Tattoo in East Haven, as you know.
Yes.
For a long time now.
Yeah.
Started in '88. I started tattooing.
That's kind of what I wanted to get. That was one of the questions I wanted to ask you: is when did you actually start tattooing, and when did Darkside actually officially start? Like, what was your beginning?
All right, I'll start from the beginning, right? So I was in business school. I was just out of high school. Maybe it was '89. I had just turned 18, and I had turned 18 at the end of '88, right? So I got my first tattoo on a complete whim, driving by Spiderweb's tattoo shop in Derby.
Right, when he was up here.
Yeah.
That's something a lot of people, I don't think. Well, most people don't even remember who the fuck Spiderweb is.
I know, right?
It's hard for people to actually realize that he was here at one point.
Yeah. So we drove by, me and a buddy of mine, and we were going to have to drive back by it on our return trip. So I was like, maybe we should get a tattoo. And I've never even thought about getting one, right? But when I was a little kid, I used to look in the window of Papillon's on Whaley Avenue because my mother used to shop next door. But that was it, right? So we drive by. On the way back, we're like, fuck it, let's do it. You know, I can swear. Oh, great. So,
really? You're talking to me?
I know, right? So fuck it, let's do it. We go into the place. I get this little rose and shit, and I was hooked, right? Got another one. On a whim, I got a hold of some tattoo equipment from Big Joe Kaplan.
So you drove up to...
We drove to...
not White Plains. Jesus Christ.
Yeah, he's like Westchester
Mount
County.
Vernon.
Mount
Jesus
Vernon,
Christ.
right. I nearly got beat up in the shop.
That's so many people.
By a disgruntled biker who thought that I had disrespected him.
And how old were you at this time?
I was 18.
You were 18.
Well, no,
I was still 18.
Yeah, I was still 18, right? So this was probably the spring of '89. Bought this equipment. I mean, it was, for the time, it was what it was.
Right.
Now it's almost unusable. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Had no idea what I was doing and started tattooing friends. So I'm tattooing.
Are you living at home? Where are you living?
Yeah, I'm living at my mom's in Cheshire.
And they're pretty cool with, like, did they know what you were doing? Or you're like in the back of the garage or something?
My parents were really like my kids would never get away with the way I grew up. You know what I mean? But I just did what I wanted to do. Like, they didn't know I was tattooing friends in my bedroom, that type of thing, you know? So anyway, yeah, so I'm tattooing for a little while, right? Here's the craziest part of the story. So I meet this kid who's a clerk in a gas station, right? I used to go in there and get, cigarettes and coffee or gas, whatever. I go in there one day, kid I barely know, says to me, "Hey man, I got you a job." And I'm like, "What are you talking about?" He's like, "I got you a job." I'm like, "I'm not looking for a job." He's like, "No man, this tattoo shop opened up down the street and the guy comes in here every morning. I was telling him about you."
So you never met the guy. How did he know you were tattooing?
I mean, you know how it is when you're like a kid, like, "Oh, did you get the tattoo?" "Oh, I started doing tattoos," that type of shit.
Right, yeah.
That's all he knew about me. Like, I don't even know if he knew my name. So anyway, I'm like, I don't even know what you're talking. Like, I don't really know you. Like, I wasn't rude, but I was like so taken by it, like, what the fuck? So, long story short, I wasn't working. I was out of work, going to school, and I liked tattooing.
And you're just, so with the tattooing, you literally just picked up the machine. Did you have a book? Did you have, like, a lot of people I know started with, like, Spalding's Tattooing A to Z,
No.
You had nothing like
Nothing but watching Spiderweb and Z tattoo me.
Okay. So how many tattoos did you have at that time, at that point? Because it's not like you only had like maybe one.
Maybe 3 or 4.
Okay.
I'd go in there with some friends. I'd watch them tattoo friends. I mean, Z and Spiderweb were both really like, back then, as you know, you couldn't just become a tattoo artist. You couldn't, it was like
you could go out, like you said, you can go out and buy gear. But there was you couldn't just be like, "I want a tattoo." Like, "You're going to teach me?"
Yeah, right. No, yeah. They're like, "Yeah, maybe if you cut my grass and do my laundry for 3 years." So I didn't want to do that. So anyway, this happened with this kid in this gas station. And long story short, I decided to take him up on it and go meet the guy. It's literally up 2 blocks from this gas station, right? So this guy, Dave Swart, he was also oddly enough, from out near Mount Vernon.
Okay.
Mayapack. You probably know where that is.
Yeah,
New
yeah.
York.
You drive through it. Yeah.
Yeah. So I meet this guy and we hit it off, man. We became like best friends. You know, we just clicked. And we hung out for like the day, and I hung out with him. We had some coffee, you know what I mean? And he was like, listen, man, he said, listen, I'm just like you. Like, I never had a shop. I've been tattooing on my own at like parties, like in my mom's house.
So this was like typical, like
back then, tattoo artist.
Well, it was legal in Connecticut, but it was illegal in New York, which is why Spiderweb was up here,
right?
And it was still illegal in Massachusetts.
Yeah.
But it was still legal in
Rhode Island.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
But there was Buddy Mont and a couple guys.
Just a handful of shops.
Handful of shops. So anyway, he's like, I'm not looking for an employee. He's like, but if you want to partner up, I got room. We'll split the bills. And we'll make a go of it. So we did, man, and that was called the Dragon's Lair. I always hated that name because it was so bad. Always hated the name. That lasted like a year or two. We went our separate ways, and I was working in like out of my house again. You know what I mean? I was working at Toad's at this time.
Okay.
You know, I worked there for a number of years, and that was awesome. But I was still tattooing out of my house, and another friend of mine, like I've had some luck, right? So another friend of mine shows up to my house one day, knew when I was kind of struggling, you know what I mean? And he was like, hand me some keys. And he's like, and I'm like, what are these keys to? And it's like, these are keys to your new tattoo shop. I rented it for you. I paid the first month's rent, turned the electricity and the phone on. That's not
lucky. That's fucking crazy.
That's crazy, right? So I'm like,
is this the shop down on Fair Ave?
This is Fair Ave.
Oh, okay.
So that was the next question. You are kidding me, right? And that's like gang territory, you know what I mean? That's you know what I mean?
It's funny. I live
like down there.
Yeah. So if anybody didn't know, Fair Ave is literally like his shop is a block and a half from this shop, and Connecticut's a fucked up place. Like back in the day, that was a real shit neighborhood.
Oh yeah.
It used to be predominantly an Italian neighborhood. When all the Guineas, you know, got old, kids moved away and died, you know, whatever. The neighborhood turned completely, and it completely changed the demographic of the neighborhood.
Yeah.
That area, like I've only heard stories. I've never actually got to go to that shop, but yeah, it was a pretty shit neighborhood.
Yeah, drugs took over down there, man. Yeah. You know, and you know what comes with that is, you know, the whole element.
Yeah.
So it was kind of sketchy neighborhood.
There was a big gang element.
Yes.
In Connecticut.
Huge back in Fairhaven back then. So I mean, but I had nothing, and it was like cool. It was a sketchy neighborhood, but cool. It was like my shop, and you know, and he helped me get it going, and we took off. You know,
and this is 89, or
this is like,
or 90.
So I get lost with the years.
Yeah,
it's somewhere around 92, 91, 92.
Okay.
I'm not really sure. I just opened up. There was no like. You know how it was back then. There's no going to zoning, getting
no, and again,
to a health.
Fairhaven, New Haven, the health department is such a fucking joke.
That,
and especially back then, it was probably even worse. I can only imagine.
Yeah,
but they were almost non-existent when it came to that kind of shit. Like care stuff.
They didn't know what to do with us. You know, back then in Connecticut, they required because they didn't know how to deal with it from the health board. They required you get a licensed doctor to write a letter to them that he. Inspects your shop, it's up to code, and he's there as a consult. You're not going to get a doctor to write that letter. Not unless you know one.
When I moved here, we had a practitioner, and he came in, and he's like, well, look at how I do things. Show I have an autoclave, that we're keeping charts, whatever. Right. And they just basically say, yeah, their procedures sterile, you know, they know what they're doing.
Yeah.
And sign it off. I think he charged me like fucking $500. This is my fucking family practitioner.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
But yeah, that's a fucking joke.
Yeah. So we got the shop up and running. It was me and Adrian Stock. He was my first apprentice, right? So and then things just kind of worked out. You know,
now, how did you know Adrian at that time?
I met Adrian from downtown New Haven. There was this coffee shop we all hung out at as teenagers. You know, drank coffee and skateboarded and you know, stayed up all night and whatnot. And Adrian was always around. You know, so I didn't really know him. He had gotten clean, so I was clean back then for a number of years. I got clean when I was 16.
I think when I met you, you were sober.
Yeah. So I got clean when I was 16 and stayed clean for a long time.
Yeah.
And Adrian had gotten clean somewhere around then. And then, you know, he had about a year or two clean, and he was like, I really want to learn how to tattoo. He worked at the Daily Cafe. He was the chef there.
Okay, right. That's right. He started out as a chef.
Yeah. So I said, man, absolutely. You know, so he was my first apprentice, and I had another friend of mine who was tattooing out of his mother's house. Alex Adams, and he ended up working with us. And then I met Eric and Jimmy Dillon.
So those guys started. Eric and Jimmy started as piercers there.
As piercers, yeah,
Right.
yeah. So I was dating this girl at the time who I guess she was a piercer when she lived out west because it was big out west. It
Okay.
still hadn't really taken on here.
Yeah, piercing. Even like when I started tattooing in '93, piercing was like. It was like the new thing in New York. Like
Right.
there was places in Manhattan that were doing it, but on Long Island, it was just like really starting to take off in '93. So
Yeah,
it's like,
I mean New York it was kind of big, but here
like in
was,
Manhattan, like in the
Right,
five
in
boroughs. But on
Manhattan,
Long Island, like man, we were in Bumfuck, Long Island back then, so it was like it wasn't that big of a deal, you know.
Yeah. So like I said, so I dated this girl back then who was a piercer. So I didn't really know a lot about body piercing, you know, and I had met Eric and Jimmy, and they were piercing. You know, in downtown New Haven, which kind of got me to thinking maybe this could work. Because, like, no one did body piercing then.
Right.
Like, I didn't know another tattoo shop that did body piercing
piercing
in Connecticut, right? So,
now at this time is like the edge downtown. Z is downtown and on State
Not
Street
yet.
at this point. It's
No.
just, Z's not there yet.
Z's not there yet.
He's
either.
still up in
He's still up in
dirty or
Bridgeport.
Oh,
He was
Bridgeport.
working with
Oh, I didn't know
Spiderweb
that.
in Bridgeport,
Okay.
Captain's Cove. I know that he was there, I think, just before he opened his place. The Edge hadn't happened yet.
yeah. The
It was
edge I
just
think
us.
happened just before I moved here. I think. Maybe.
Yeah.
Like,
They didn't
like,
last
like
that long.
no, like late '90s, early 2000s.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I met Eric and Jimmy. They came in as piercers, and then one day Eric said to me, "I want to learn how to tattoo." And what an amazing
And this
decision
is,
that
I was
was.
going to say, right? And this is still on Farron Ave.
This is still unfair now.
And Farron Ave is, I mean, I drive by it every day. That's a tiny little space. What's it, like 600, 800 square feet? Is it as big as this room?
Oh, it's big. It goes back.
Okay, because
It goes
from
back.
the outside, it looks
So
fucking
when
big.
we started, we had two storefronts that we combined.
Oh,
But
you
when
had both those.
Yeah, I
Oh,
had
okay.
two of them.
Okay.
But when we started, it was one, and it was as wide as this, and maybe twice as long. Maybe not even twice as long.
Right, yeah.
You know, and I had like no, I don't think it maybe this long.
It was like 500-600 square feet. They
Yeah,
look,
it was
from
it
outside.
wasn't that big. So we had a little front room, and then we had because it was just going to be me. You know what I mean?
exactly.
So then I just had this little like back area, this makeshift area to tattoo in. And you know, back then we didn't have like lay down tables and like
Right.
comfortable chairs. We worked out of barber chairs.
Yeah,
you know what I
exactly.
mean?
Exactly.
And if someone had to lie down, we like laid them across something else. You know,
Yeah.
we did what we had to do.
Yeah, I mean, my first 15 years of the career, I worked out of a barber chair and a table. Or you put a plank on a folding chair, and you had people lean over the folding chair to do their backs
Yes.
and lower backs. And
Oh
stuff.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we did some crazy shit.
Yeah, there was some dumb shit.
We definitely did. So and then people kept adding on. Like I met Lou Jacques. He started off like he would work 1 day a week with us because he was working in South Windsor at Body Graphics.
Okay,
Remember
so
that
yeah,
place?
because he's from
New Britain.
New Britain.
New Britain. He was living in New Britain, so he would come down 1 day a week. George Carter, who owned Designs on You in Wallingford,
Right.
he would come down like 1 day a week, and so we were outgrowing this little
That
place
space, yeah.
dramatically. Like we had turned that one little room. So we got this place next door, which was now just a front room.
Right.
We also started making body jewelry. So I had a lathe.
That
in
was
there.
happening there.
That was
not
happening
on Route 85.
there.
So I thought that was in Route 80.
It was
Okay.
both.
Okay.
So it
I know
started
it happened.
there.
Yeah, I didn't
started
realize
there.
it started that early.
Oh yeah.
Because when I met you, so this would have been mid 90s. This would have been like maybe 95 at this point.
We moved out of there around 95, 96. I don't know the dates. You know what I mean?
Right.
Somewhere.
Because I'm
around
trying to remember when I met Eric, because Eric had just started tattooing when I met him.
Yeah, because he started going on the road like as soon as he got his wings, man. He was driven. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He was driven, you know, and he used to like. I would watch him, man. He was inspiring because he was real fresh to this.
Yeah.
And he would go around to tattoo conventions with his portfolio and walk up to guys like Guy Atchison, Philip Lou, big names, and be like, "This is my portfolio. Please criticize me."
And he was also
You know?
getting heavily tattooed.
Yeah.
Too. 'Cause,
Yeah.
like when I met him, he was one of the first. Not one of the. He was like I'd say he was one of the first 5 people that came from out of state to get tattooed by me.
Yeah.
On Long Island, because at that time it was like a 2-hour drive, and him, Jimmy Dillon, one time Lou came out, and they drove down. And he's like, "Yeah, I want to get a sleeve," and I'm like, "Okay," like I had no idea who he was, and I'm
Right.
like, and while I'm tattooing him, we start talking, and he's like, yeah, I tattoo over a place called Darkside. You should come up there and do a guest spot, blah, blah, blah. And he was quick to try to get people to, but again, I think it was just a matter of trying to be around enough people that you're going to glean that much more. And at that time, you guys had so much happening. Like, this is before the magazines. Like, I think when I went to the shop the first time, it was right before you guys started blowing up.
Yeah.
Like, right before you started blowing up. So.
Yeah. And then, we outgrew that place. Like, we had outgrown it a year before we actually got out of there.
Yeah.
Like, we were like on each other's laps trying to work.
Because now, by the time you moved down to Route 80, the second and this has always been called Darkside Tattoo.
Yes.
Okay, so now you move down to Route 80. You've got George, Lou, you've got Eric tattooing. You're tattooing full time. Yeah. When did Ann Plaza join you?
Right around the same time Eric did.
So you got 6 solid tattooers.
Yeah.
And you got Jimmy Dillon is now piercing full time.
Jimmy's piercing full time.
And you're running a machine shop out of the fucking
I've got a body jewelry company that I'm wholesaling.
Right. I remember
that. Some shops, you know what I mean? We'd be up all night long, like polishing jewelry on this little polishing wheel, and
it was
crazy.
Like back then, you guys were definitely you were definitely like you were just hands on fucking everything. Like the body jewelry thing really surprised me because I had no idea. And again, like I knew Jimmy because I started tattooing Jimmy, knew Eric. But when I got there, when I went to the shop the first time, I was like, what the fuck? And that back room was it looked like a bomb went off.
Oh, yeah, it did.
But the amount of shit that was getting done in that back room, you got guys drawing on the fucking tables. You've got it wasn't a lathe, but you got like the polishing shits and the ring bending. Like, you had everything in that back. And then on top
I had a lathe back there.
Oh, you did have a lathe back there?
Around the corner. There was a full 6-foot lathe.
Yeah, and then you're fucking, there's a place to fucking scrub your tubes.
Oh, yeah.
Dude, it was a shit show back there. I remember
I know.
that. And this is...
Well, we made it work.
Oh, no, totally. Yeah, I mean, it was definitely like, you walk in, it was the big open room, and I think you had 5 or 6 guys in that room.
This is in East Haven?
The one in East Haven on Route 80, yeah. You had a guy in each corner.
Yep. And then I had a room.
Yeah. And then there was like
But then when you came, we expanded.
You had blown out.
Took the place next door and made a room for Eric and you and Julio.
You had Julio, and you also, we're jumping ahead.
Yeah, we're jumping
ahead. Like, so let's baby steps.
Baby steps.
So you start out there, you've got the body piercing up front. It's still the tiny, it's probably it had to be a 1,200 square foot shop, I think.
This is where?
On Route 80.
On Route 80.
Because when you make
originally, it was small.
So now George, Lou, all those guys, when they're at the old shop, are still kind of like just coming in doing 1 day, 2 days. Is that why you decided to make the move to the bigger shop so that everybody had a place to work full time?
Yeah, I mean, so there was a number of reasons. There was the neighborhood we were in got sketchier. Someone actually got murdered. Like right next to our shop, like about, 50 feet from our front door.
Yeah.
And that was like, I'm not doing this, you know what I mean? And at the time, looking up some demographics, because remember, I did go to business school.
Yeah.
Looking up some demographics, like Route 80 from New Haven through East Haven was one of the fastest growing commercial roads in this area.
Right.
But it was still, I could get in there. Like, you couldn't get into Route 1 as a tattoo shop.
Right,
it just wasn't going to happen. I couldn't afford it.
Right.
Even if I could get
at this time, so you were the first shop to open up in East Haven. You're also the only shop to open up in East Haven. So how did you end up sneaking under the wire? Or was it the kind of thing you opened up and they said, we're not doing another shop?
So I did sneak under the wire the first time when we opened the first side of it, right? And we all had our own place, and then more people came. You're one of them.
Yeah.
So we had to expand again. And then there was a guy who tried to open a strip club in East Haven, right?
I'm trying to think where that was.
This was on.
That wasn't that was considered Fairhaven, New Haven, the ones that are opened up on not Olive Street. I've got the name of the block, Water Street.
Yeah, no, that's New Haven. But so there was a bar in East Haven, and the guy lost his liquor license, and he decided to turn it into a BYOB strip club.
Right, which is weird.
Fuck you to the town.
In Connecticut, you can, if girls can get fully naked or just
I'm
topless.
not sure.
I don't remember. I only know this. I've never been to one of the strip clubs here. I promise. But I had clients that used to make a point. But if you bring your own booze, then it's, I think, fully naked. But if you don't, then they have to wear like pasties or something like that.
Something
and
like
they can
that.
have a full bar, but then the girls can only be exotic dancers versus strippers.
Right. So if there's no booze, it can get crazier.
Exactly.
And he could stay in business, apparently. What happened was the town passed a law that basically says this. You cannot open an age-restrictive business in East Haven unless it has to do with like tobacco. So to try and stop this strip club.
Right.
But it also grandfathered me into being the only tattoo shop because it's an age-restrictive business.
That's fucking huge, by the way. It's
Yeah.
ridiculously big. Because there's that one shop that's opened up next to that gym.
Yeah. Well, they don't really enforce that law anymore because there is another shop. There's that shop in that gym or next to the gym or whatever.
Yeah. But I don't know of another shop in East Haven.
No.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Nobody's jumped on it.
No one's really jumped on it.
So you're lucky. You're very fortunate. Well, you're also right next to Brantford, and you're right between us.
Yeah, we have a shop that just opened up down the street from us, right over the Brantford line.
Oh, you did? Okay.
Yeah.
And
then there's still, Kevin's shop is still Transcend.
Yeah, Transcend is up the road. Yeah, Transcend is right up the road.
So that's what happened, man. We moved there, and it blew up. Like, it blew up. Like, we were in every magazine. I was getting calls all the time for... We want to feature you here. We were featured in a magazine in Italy called.
So that's one of the things I wanted to talk about
shop.
because of the nature of the business back then. Like I said, Eric. So I got into magazines I was very fortunate. I got into the magazines in 94. Right after 94. Right after I left my apprenticeship, went to work at Lotus. I got an article put on me. And I'm assuming that's how Eric got to know who I was. Most of those people back then, they only got to know
because there was no Facebook, Instagram.
Exactly.
Was barely even an internet.
Exactly. They only discovered people via the magazines. You guys I remember Eric was one of the big names at that time because he's, like you said, he's traveling, he's getting out, he's doing stuff. The magazines are really what turned everybody on to the shop. And you had Joey Apartments at the time.
Yeah.
And Apartments was good at your management as far as getting the magazines to take interest in the shop.
Oh, yeah.
And at that point, you're becoming a superstar shop. I mean, you're literally, in my opinion, that shop is responsible for putting New England on the map, as far as I'm concerned. That's coming from New York. You know what I mean? That was a big fucking deal. How much do you miss those fucking days?
I'll tell you what, man. For a while I did, because as you know, things crumbled, right?
Right.
And for a while I did, and I was like, man, I really fucked this up. You know what I mean? But now it's a good memory. But I'm glad it's a memory. You know what I mean? Okay.
Well, so let's talk about the idea. Like you said, you went to business school. You've got Darkside running 110%. You've got the merchandising was good. How much of that had to do with just being surrounded by other creatives, like other people, like Eric, like Lou, like Plaza, like all those guys? Like how much of that had to do with that, you think?
Well, I think we fed off each other's creativity, and one thing that we had that I really enjoyed is it's an open air shop. Like there's no closed rooms. Right. Nothing against closed rooms.
No, I'm not.
But I just like the energy. When everyone's creating, and you're walking to your station to do a tattoo, and you walk by Joe Cap doing this amazing pinup, and Eric doing this amazing whatever, and Nick Baxter, you walk by all that to do your tattoo, and you're like energized. You're like, wow, man. You know what I mean? It's like a blessing to have that kind of creativity. And remember, I have no formal training. I've learned more from Lou, Eric, George as we grew together.
Right, as everybody progresses. Because I mean, you guys were really good about spending every moment with one another. Yes. I remember talking to Eric about how he had come in for his appointment and he was dragging ass. I'm like, what's up with you? And he's like, oh, we had to redo the HVAC in the shop.
Oh yeah.
I'm like, you did what? And he's like, yeah, we were up in the ceiling, laying new, ducts in for the HVAC. I'm like, why the fuck are you doing that? He's like, what do you mean?
That's what we do.
Yeah.
That's what we do.
You just take care of the shop.
He and I were inseparable. I would pick him up at 7 a.m, right? He lived at his brother's house in Seymour. And I lived, in New Haven. So it was me and, I don't know if you ever remember Joel.
Yes.
So Joel was part of the crew, and I'd pick Eric about like 7. Bro, we would go to the Milford Mall and walk around with the old people. Like we would we would do weird shit. You know what I mean? Like every day. It was crazy. And then, like you said, if you had to do the HVAC, like it was all hands on deck.
Like I said, I was genuinely impressed by the camaraderie of that shop at the time because there was so much fucking going on, and it wasn't like there was this from an outsider's perspective. Because when I went there as a guest, from an outsider's perspective, it didn't seem like you guys had like. No, we got to do this to be number one. We got to do this. We got to get our shop out there. You guys were just doing everything, and just the next thing would be the next step. Right. The next step. It was always just this building on things, that it was just about rising. It had nothing to do with becoming like stagnant or anything. No. It was just constantly trying. And at that time, like you said, everybody's fucking young. And I'm not even
we didn't have families and kids and much else besides the shop. That's all we really had. You know what I mean?
Right.
So I think that gave us right now, like, I want to be home with my wife and kids. You know what I mean? Like, exactly. I'm not staying at the shop till midnight.
It's a different. Everything has changed dramatically. I think even for younger generation tattooers, I think there's a handful of them out there that still eat, drink, and breathe this shit.
Oh yeah.
But I think most people have outside influences now that they want to be more involved in, not just in the tattooing.
Sure.
So part of the things that you were responsible for, and one of the things that eventually got me into your shop, besides Eric having me do a guest spot out there, and then us moving up to New Hampshire, and then I was constantly bouncing back and forth between New York, Connecticut, and then New Hampshire at that time.
Yeah, you were working with Corey up there.
Right. But you guys had done, you had started Tattoo Now with Gabe.
Yeah.
So now, who started that? Gabe's a computer nerd.
Right.
You were always kind of a tech nerd.
Yeah.
But how did that
So, I had met Gabe before Farron Avenue. I was tattooing him. It was one of my clients in my house. And he lived in Northampton, and he would hitchhike down to get tattooed by me. He was just a hitchhiker,
I remember that fucking story. you picked him up as a hitchhiker.
Yeah. I didn't pick him up as a hitchhiker.
But you didn't.
I met him through
He was just hitchhiking.
He was just, he always hitchhiked. He had a backpack full of signs with Hartford, Connecticut, Springfield, Mass, New Haven, Connecticut, all the places he may have to go. In a backpack already pre-written on cardboard. That's just how he was.
This would have been
early 90s when I met him.
Early 90s when you met him. Because when he did my first website was before I left New York, which would have been 90, it was 98, 99.
Yeah.
I think he had done my website. Because that's when you guys were, I think I was the first tattoo website. Because the first
besides Darkside, yes.
Yeah, I think the first, so I don't even know if Darkside was live yet, because the first technical website was like a popcorn. It was like a popcorn thing, I thought he said.
I don't know.
I might be mistaken.
We did Da Vinci Tattoo, you know him.
Yeah.
Frank Romano.
Yeah, after the fact. Yeah.
We did, I can't remember early on. We did,
I can't remember either. I remember introducing you guys to a shit ton of people.
Super 88, we did their site.
Scotty's Place.
Scotty's Place. So we did a few sites, but I think, you were the first, and we were using you, because you were a name. You were out there.
Yeah, because back then I was doing conventions all the time.
Right, so we wanted to get our name out there, so let's help Joe. Maybe he can help us. You know what I mean? So you were a sponsored
I think even
us,
till this day, and I know I'm not embarrassed to say this, but I remember you motherfuckers showing up in Jersey at the fucking tattoo Mario Bart's greatest tattoo show on earth, and you and fucking Gabe roll up, and you both look like just burnout fucking hippies.
Oh yeah.
And you walk up to the booth, and I'm talking to Bill DeMichael, who at that time was involved with Damien in Toronto for tattoo. Was it Tattoo.com? I think those guys owned. So Tattoo.com, and you fucking, I could see you guys rolling up out of my corner of my eye, and I'm like, fuck these guys, I'm not introducing them. There's no fuck way in introducing these guys. And Bill walked away, and I looked at the two of you, I'm like, what the fuck is wrong with you? And you looked at me like, what? And I'm like, that was fucking Bill DeMichael from Tattoo.com, and I can't even introduce you two to him, because this fucking Gabe's walking around in a pair of fucking Birkenstocks and filthy nails and fucking dirty hair. I'm like, oh God, I wanted to kill you. Oh my Christ. But so you guys start Tattoo Now, and You really did. That was. I won't say it was the first tattoo community, because you had at that time you had Ink Nation.
Yeah.
And how much of it like did and tattoo, but tattoos.com was to me like, I don't know. I think maybe because I knew you guys, maybe, but the community in Tattoo Now was a little bit tighter than tattoos.com.
Yeah.
And then you had Ink Nation, which was kind of like the Wild Wild West.
Right.
Like there was no rules and everybody could just shit on the next guy.
Yeah.
And I mean, shit, like in today's society, they would have been canceled inside of 25 fucking minutes.
Oh yeah.
You know,
they would.
You would need an entire room of fucking monitors to fucking run the fucking business now like that. But I do miss those days, because I did like the message boards that they had set up.
They did.
I did like the fact that, you know, you can go to one site which looks similar to another site, which is similar to another site. It's unfortunate. It's become kind of an outdated thing now. I think that the community, and this is why I wanted to get back to the magazines. How important do you think something like that would be in today's society? I mean, now we have Instagram,
right?
But Instagram's not ours. Instagram belongs to
And here's the thing with Instagram. So as you probably have felt it, they recently, over the past 6 months or so, changed the algorithm again, and like the average tattoo that used to get you a couple hundred likes might get you a dozen likes now. Like they're just not coming up. Like you gotta have boobs and you gotta show them, or you're not getting likes. Well, it's just become that.
It's and that's one of the things. I mean, a lot of male tattooers get bent out of that, because you've got these, you know, wonderful tattooers, male, female, whatever, and every picture starts out with them posing in front of a mirror, or them posing in front of their chair, or doing a drawing, whatever. And to me, it cheapens the entire thing. You know what I mean? Like it does. You know, sorry, it does. But again, whatever. I guess you can't hold it against anybody if that's what they feel they're fucking. That's their strong point. Knock yourself the fuck out.
I mean, and it's. I don't think that it's these tattooers thinking that that's their strong point. It's understanding how these algorithms work. For instance, like my daughter and I were talking about this. Now she went to art school and she lives in Brooklyn, and she's a photographer. And we were talking about this thing, and she was like, "You'll see painters now. They won't just take a picture of their painting. Yeah. They're holding it, because if there's no face in the picture, the algorithm just goes by that picture."
Well, how possible do you think it is for say a platform like Tattoo Now? Because the fact is, and you're not really part of Tattoo Now anymore.
Not in a sense like that. I mean, Gabe and I are still close, and we talk a lot, and my site is still there, and you know, and I've gone up there and done some things with him. But no, as a business,
it's mainly
Gabe. Yeah.
I mean, how possible do you think that is in today's society? Do you think things have been separated so much over such a long period of time that to get anybody on one side, like we talked about the tattoo gathering happening the middle of this month, I think it is, like a week or two, I think. Actually, no, I think it's toward the end of the month. And I went to it last year. I was part of the first two. And I was genuinely excited that they were doing the tattoo gathering back then, when I remember going up there. Did you even go to those shows?
No.
Were you guys already kind of
We were on the outs for a little while.
Yeah.
My fault. Not Gabe's.
Well, I'm going to get into that if that's okay with you.
Yeah, you can get into whatever you want.
Okay,
An open book.
So before then, like with Tattoo Now, when they did the gathering, it was such a unique thing at the time, and I was really impressed by it. And I should probably be talking to Gabe about this, but I was genuinely impressed. And I remember him taking me up to fucking Jiminy Peak, and I'm driving up there, and I'm like, where the fuck are we going, dude?
Yeah,
like,
it's in the middle of nowhere.
It's the middle of nowhere, Massachusetts. And we get up there, and it wasn't until we actually walked on the campus that you sit back and go, it's fucking gorgeous out here. This is fucking beautiful. And you start thinking, like, this could work. And the first 2 years, it almost did, I think. I think I was disappointed because they didn't have enough people for the door.
Right.
And the fact of the matter is, if you're not there to tattoo your 3 appointments, which I think is bullshit, go to a convention. They should bring clients in for you, you know?
Right.
That's how it should be. You know, they should be making their money is on the door, not on the tattooers.
Yes.
But it was just one of those things where it's like they had all these seminars going on and everything else. And to be honest, at the end of the weekend, I was just unimpressed. I was like, as fun as everything was, and the sharing of information, because at that time it was all these super young tattooers from California, handful from Europe. Like, I think I was the oldest tattooer at the fucking event, for fuck's sake, you know. And at that time, I'd only been tattooing maybe 17 years, 16 years, you know, and it wasn't that long. And then they brought Gabe in for Durbin for the second one, which was a big feather in their cap. But it was one of those things that never really, it just got worse and worse and worse. And I went last year, and I was genuinely fucking underwhelmed because there was nobody through the door. A bunch of the tattooers weren't even in their booths because there was nothing happening.
Right.
You know, they're doing it. I was shocked when they said they were doing it again this year. And out of morbid curiosity, I want to go up there just for the fucking, just to see what they pull off. Because they do have an incredible roster of presenters.
Yeah.
So it'd be interesting to see where they take it. I just don't want to spend a day in fucking Jiminy Peak because the allure is fucking wore off. I don't give a shit no more.
Right, because you've been
exactly.
But I mean, Gabe's got great ideas, and he just
he does, and that's been the shame.
He knows how to bring people together.
That's been the shame.
So
I think he needed somebody like you at that time because I mean, when it was happening back then, it was happening fast.
Right.
And he was getting a lot of fucking sites going up and whatnot, and I had introduced him to a lot of people, you know. But yeah, I think he needs a front guy. He can't be the face. You know what I mean? And he tries to be the face because the fact is, unless someone's making money, to get a front guy is difficult. It's not an easy thing. And nobody does stuff in trade anymore. They don't want to do stuff in trade.
And you know, I would love to help Gabe out any way I could. You know, we started this thing like, you know, I had gotten I grew up on computers. My father worked for IBM when I was a little kid. I had computers in my house, and people would come into my house and be like, "The hell is that thing? A computer?"
Yeah.
Like they had no idea what these things are, why they're in my house. Right. You know, they were everywhere. So I had already had that, and I met Gabe, and we started talking about making a website, you know, for Darkside, and we started doing that before Tattoo Now. We got something up, and then we started talking about making it a business. Like, we weren't thinking about making a community page so much as making websites and kiosks and business cards and all cool stuff and that evolved from it.
Yeah, the community made sense because it was an easy way to kind of like socialize with other potential clients.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That kind of makes the most amount of sense.
But I mean, back then there wasn't a such thing as social media.
Right.
People went on to the what we had of an internet simply for information and porn. Like they went on there like just to look at stuff, but not really interact with their community or their friends or meet people. It wasn't a big thing yet. So, you know, we were just looking to sell websites. Right. You know? And then it evolved to this community thing because as Facebook and Instagram and things like that were taking off, you had to have a community. Right. Or you weren't going to have shit.
Well, I remember the kiosk thing that you guys were trying to do, which is funny because you fast forward 20 years.
Now
you've got iPads and it's on your phone. Exactly, even more so. Yeah. So, but if you think about it, that was the beginning of digital portfolios. Yeah. You know what I mean? Because I remember I had one in our shop. I remember going to conventions and have to fucking
carry that big
fucking
iMac.
Mac. I remember. No, yeah, they got what was it? What it was called the iMac back then?
Yeah, it was the original iMac.
But I remember going to that Jersey convention, having it on my thing, and everybody's like, "What the fuck is that?"
Right, and they're like, "Where's the mouse?" And you're like, "No, you can just touch it." They're like, "What do you mean you could touch it?"
Yeah, and people were just kind of like, "Oh my god, your portfolio's on here," and that's what got to Bill to Michael to stop. And you could tell he was a little. He's like, "What the fuck is this?" And I'm like, "Oh yeah, these guys from fucking Connecticut and Massachusetts are fucking crushing this shit, dude." And at that time, it was. I mean, I remember Gabe making up my little
business card CD.
Yeah, the business card CDs.
I still have it.
Yeah, I have like 2 or 3 of those myself. I mean, can you even play those anymore? Do they even make discs?
No. Well, they do make. So they do make. You can buy like exterior like CD player, DVD burner things.
So you could put them on there and play.
I haven't actually tried to play one on there.
So what this is literally an old, for those kids out there who've never seen a fucking
CD.
It's a CD, but it's business card size. Yeah. And it's got rounded edges and it's got a great graphic on the top. Yeah. And you drop it. You used to be able to drop it in your disc player on your computer, and you'd have you could have your portfolio on there, you could have videos on there, you could have all kinds of shit on
games.
There. Yeah, there was some games on them. Yeah, I don't think I had games on mine. I might have.
You might have the slide puzzle. Yeah, that was a quick, easy one.
But it was a really interesting idea, and it's funny. Like I said, fast forward to the days of iPads and stuff like that, and it's like you guys were the beginning of that, and it's a shame. Neither one of you really stuck on course. I think that's the thing. I think you needed management back there to simply be like, no, stop, continue with this. You know what I mean? I think that was the thing. And much stuff was coming at you.
We were just two tattoo enthusiasts, tattoo artist kids trying to figure out how to make this technology work in this industry. You know what I mean? And it was cool. It was awesome.
Well, because I mean, if you think about it too, it's also reminiscent of how this business got started. It was never you never outsourced shit back in the day. Was, oh, I need screws for my machines. I need to get grommets for this.
Yeah.
Oh, my ink caps come from this plastics company from their bottle caps. So like there was all that kind of stuff where you made do with what you can get your hands on.
Right.
And then you had to make do with, okay, how do I computer program? How do I do this? What kind of computer is best to do this, that, and the other thing? So I think that's what intrigued me back then, is the fact that, did I have an interest in it? Not really. Did I understand it? Not at all. But the fact is, when I see somebody who knows what they're fucking doing and could use a leg up, I'm all about helping, you know? So,
And it definitely brings people, like back then, I mean, how many people stopped by, I know our booths, I'm sure yours.
Yeah.
Not even to know who the hell you are, but like, what the hell is that thing? Let me go play with that. That thing's cool.
Most certainly. I remember you guys showing up at one of the conventions with the big giant tiki you designed. Like, so they had a game console.
Yeah, we took an old video game.
So back then you guys had built this game console. You had a game console.
Put
an iMac
old
in.
video game console.
And then was you were the one building the actual tiki.
We all did it. Like you said earlier in this, how we all got involved in everything. Like I literally had the whole shop in my backyard, fiberglassing and carving out this. I mean, the thing stood 9 feet tall. The tiki head that went over the video game console,
right?
And the screen was in its mouth. Like the head was like 6 feet wide and like 7 feet tall. It was huge. And none of us knew how to do this. You know, we just got chicken wire and fiberglass. And
you make it work.
And we made it work, man. But we were all out there. Like I still have pictures of us making that thing. Like me, Eric, remember Budsy?
Yeah, Budsy.
Lou, Jimmy Dillon. Like all of us out there like working on this thing.
Yeah, I was talking to, because Jimmy Dillon still cuts my hair. And it's like we were talking about trying to get a couple of the apartments and a couple of guys together to do like an old, just like a round robin of a bunch of the guys. So,
that'd be cool.
Because I'm hoping, like I said, the next person I'm hoping to do is Lou. I'm going to do Eric and hopefully start releasing them in the next week or so. You know.
Yeah.
All right. So from there, and if you don't mind talking about it,
I don't want to talk about it.
Basically, the fall of Darkside. So I come to Connecticut at the middle of 2002, and I rent space. You had blown out the section building over next to Darkside, and you had 4 stations and a body piercing station, and a whole little apartment in the back. Oh yeah. And I was there for literally almost just shy of a year, I think it was. Yeah. And you fucking hit the wall.
Hit the wall, man.
Hit the wall. So you were sober when I met you. Mm-hmm. After I'd moved there, I started tattooing you again. You had started drinking, I think. Yeah. And that was like, would you say that was maybe the beginning of the end?
Yeah, man. Like, as we say, 1 is too many and 1,000 never enough, man. Yeah. Like, I forgot that. It's fine. So, so I was like, I had been clean at that time, I think like 10 years, right? I had arrived, done all that I wanted to do in life and more. Like, I had, money and fame and friends and all that shit that you think defines you. Right. And I was at the dinner one night with the woman that I decided I was going to marry, and that was
that's
another
where things
bad decision.
Yeah, that's a weird time.
Yeah, it was, and I decided I wanted to have a beer, right? Just have a beer, because I hung out with like Joey Apps was always at the bar, having such a good time, and a lot of the guys we worked with, the guys from the machine shop, all that stuff. I had this beer. And it was just the beginning of the end, man. And it just became like the snowball effect. The same thing that happened to me when I was a kid, like in high school. You know what I mean? Like, started out with drinking, and then you're drinking and smoking weed, and then you're drinking and smoking weed, and doing some pills. And it just, went to shit, man. And that was in 97 that I started drinking, right? And by 2005, everything was gone. You know what I mean? Like,
so that was the shame. So when I came to work there, like I said, it was middle of 2002. Yeah. My wife and I had moved to Connecticut from New Hampshire because we didn't know where we wanted to go, and figured this was a good jumping off point. It's the middle of the state, between New York, Boston, whatever. And you had opened up the second side. I was renting a room from you guys. At that time, you've got Amp Plaza, you've got Lou Jacques, yourself, Eric Merrill, Julio Rodriguez, Nick Baxter, Nick Trammell had just started working there. Johnny Barrios is bouncing it up. Albie Rock is another one. You got another guy you apprenticed.
Yeah.
And it was one of those things where it's like you guys were the powerhouse. In the back of my mind, I always found it like you never take things for granted.
No.
And I think there was a lot of that going on.
There was a lot of that going on.
And it was one of those things where I looked at it as, you guys need to one up it now. Like you guys, you're being adults. Stop being, you got to be an adult now.
Right.
Like you guys were kids before. Everything was coming at you, no big deal. But now you got to be more an adult.
Yeah. And I wasn't ready for that.
No, it wasn't only you. I don't think it was only you.
No, it wasn't only me.
A lot of people.
Yeah, I didn't like hit the wall so alone. I think we all hit the wall in our own ways. And some of the guys grew up. You know what I mean?
I think
some of us just didn't.
And that was another thing. I think at that point, you move into another building, or you blow out to another building, and now you've got 5 guys on this side, or 7 guys on this side, 2 separate rooms. Mm-hmm. The other side is 4 completely separate rooms.
Yeah.
And while they're connected by windows, it still was weird. Like, I will say, going there and working, I had my own little space, which was great, but it was also like, it wasn't like being part of Darkside. It was like, I'm just renting a room at Darkside. And from my perspective, what I had started seeing happening was things were getting, you could see things getting worse.
Yeah.
And people were getting agitated. And like you said, people are growing up. Eric now is like, he's asking me, it's like, what do you want to do? What do you want to do? And I'm like, dude, I'm not doing anything. I'm like, I didn't come here to open up a tattoo shop. I came here to fucking work with you guys and figure out what the fuck was going to happen with my life. I don't know what I'm going to do. And some shit went down with you at the shop. I had a conversation with you. It was like it was literally like a Tuesday night. I had a conversation with you. You're like, it's cool. It's never going to happen again. It's done. Next day, I hear something worse. And I went in there. I didn't even tell you. I just went in there, packed my shit, fucked off. And everybody's like, where are you going? I'm like, dude, I'm not working in a shop like this. I can't do this. I was like, it's a shame to see it all hit the wall, but I can't be part of this. This isn't the kind of place I want to be part of. Packed up my shit, and we were kind of forced to open Hope, because the last thing I wanted to do was, I didn't really want to open. I didn't want to own a shop. I wanted to just figure out where things.
I know you and I had that conversation before you came to work with me. That you knew you could open a shop, but you just didn't want to.
Yeah, exactly. So, so you managed to hold on in that location for another 2 years. Right?
Yeah, another couple of years. I mean, a lot of the guys left, and went and opened Transcend. And I got, another crew in there, and I just fell apart. I was in a bad marriage that didn't last, that I probably never should have been in.
Right.
And I had just started drinking, you know what I mean? Right. And then, you know how it is in this industry, or maybe you don't, because you've always kept your shit together.
For the most part, yeah.
If you decide you wanna flirt with disaster, there's a whole line of people that you meet in this job that are willing to freaking drive you theirs. You know what I mean? Like the element that was there. You know what I mean? So it wasn't difficult to go from a guy that lived a clean life to a guy that was like, just spent all the time, because it was readily available.
Oh, yeah, exactly. Especially in a place like Connecticut. It's funny. Like, I remember being in New Hampshire, and oxys were huge.
That's what hit
2002.
Here,
it didn't get big here until like 2000. Yeah, the end of 2002, 2003. It took about a year for it to get big down here.
Yeah.
But I remember, man, everybody that shit touched, it fucked over.
Yeah.
And seeing it from an outsider's perspective, where I never did drugs, I didn't even really drink back then. I used to have a glass of wine every now and again, But seeing it happen, I'm like, what the fuck? It's like, dude, what are you doing? I've seen it happen to a bunch of guys up north, and I was like, you just see it just take over and just fuck everything up.
Oh, yeah.
And it's a fucking shame. It's crazy.
Yeah, and that's our story, man. That's my story. You know what I mean? And I totally appreciate that all these years later, you and I can still have this friendship, because at first, like, you gotta know the guilt even though it seemed like I just didn't care. Like, I was going through that guilt of, my friend Joe just moved here to work here.
Yeah.
And now he's got to leave because I've made this place so unlivable for him. Like, the guilt of that.
Well, I think that I can't really speak for Julio and Eric and stuff, but I know that's how they felt.
Oh, sure.
They just felt, I don't want to say betrayed, but they just feel like, well, this is not my place anymore.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like things got out of hand.
Oh, absolutely.
You know, and again, having spent so much time together, yeah, it's hard, man. Like I don't even know I don't want to get in anybody's head. Like I wasn't that attached to the shop or to the people in it. Like I knew you guys for many years. Right. But it was one of those things I'm like, yeah, I'm not letting this drag me down. I gotta go. And I just up and left.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So so now you held on for a couple more years. The shop eventually closes, and you bounced around a little bit. You worked at a couple of different shops.
Yep. So I tried to clean up my act at first, and I moved out to Vermont, to the middle of nowhere. A friend of mine lived in the woods of Vermont, like in a town called Jamaica, Vermont.
I didn't know this actually.
Yeah. So it's a town called Jamaica, Vermont, and it's literally in the middle of nowhere. And it was founded by a Rastafarian band that got lost in the woods.
For real.
This is true. And they named it Jamaica, Vermont. And that was, I don't know how many decades ago, but it's literally like, it's the type of town where there's one store and they close at 3 in the afternoon. And if you don't they sell everything from guns to bread to eggs. If you don't get there by 3, you're driving 45 minutes to the next thing open.
Wow.
You know what I mean? Oh, it was crazy, you know? So I moved there because he's like, dude, come here. You can tattoo the whole town. Well, I tattooed the whole town in a weekend.
It's like 6 people.
Yeah. Like in our age bracket that want to get tattooed. And then what do I do? So I was really lost up there. An old friend of mine owned a shop in Meriden, Connecticut.
That shop's gone. It's gone now, right?
Yeah. A Second Skin. And I called him up and I was like, Rich, I'm in a bad place, man. Like, you know, I've really kind of lost that. And he knew, I want to get my...
Well, dude, a lot of people know, I think. I mean, when Darkside closed, it closed a chapter.
Oh, yeah.
In Connecticut. It closed a chapter in Connecticut.
I remember seeing Corey Kruger like a few years after this, and we were sitting on the steps in Philly, I think, and he walked by me and I'm like, what's up, Corey? He's like, and I'm like, it's me, Sean from Darkside. He goes, dude, you're still alive? Like, yeah.
That sounds like Corey.
Yeah. But anyway, so, I told this guy I need help, basically, and he was like, Sean, if you can get here, I'll give you a job, a car, and an apartment.
Wow.
I've just had a lot of, like, blessings in my life, and this is definitely one of them. Like, this guy didn't owe me nothing. You know what I mean? And we're not... At the time, we knew each other, how close we were. I guess we were a little, but not like that. You know what I mean? He literally held up on his word, man. He had an efficiency apartment, not attached to the shop. It was like a house with a storefront attached to it. Gave me the apartment, gave me the keys to his father's car that he never drove anymore, and gave me a job.
Dude, that's the one thing with this industry, I think, that exists still. It's not, I think, again, few and far between now, but there are people out there that are just... They just want to make sure that the next guy is doing well. You know what I mean? Where I think some people would just be like, "No, we're good. I don't need that." I mean, because
and I got that a lot, from people that I thought I was close to. Yeah. But I get it, man. Like now looking in hindsight, being clean all these years, there's people that I know that are still caught out or trying to get out of that life that. I have to be a little guarded if they came to me for a job or they came to me.
You'd have to be concerned,
right? If you came to me for help getting clean, that's one thing.
I was going to say,
you've
done that with a handful of guys that work for you, haven't you? Like you got guys that are there that help straighten out, right? So,
well, I do a lot of volunteer work, man, with the prison system and all that for years now. But anyway, so I came back to Meriden, and struggled to stay clean. And this guy just stayed with me. You know what I mean? Like, and he's the type of guy. Even his wife even said to me so many times where I'd like fuck up, you know what I mean? She's like, Sean, I don't know what it is about you, but my husband would throw anyone else through a wall and worry about the consequences later. But for some reason, he won't let me fire you. And you get beat down that much, you know what I mean? Like eventually, like you got to put your hands up and give up. And I did. And I got clean in 2007. I never looked back.
That's fantastic. That's phenomenal. That's fantastic.
And I got clean with nothing, bro. Absolutely nothing. Like
doing your thing.
I had like really nowhere to live. I had like no money left. Couldn't see my kids. Nothing. You know what I mean? And I just put one foot in front of the other. You know what I mean? And here we are today, 17 years later.
So a few years later, you open up a small place not too far from here, right on the border of New Haven, East Haven. That little tiny space right on Route. Is that considered Route 1 there? Right off the highway up here. When you reopened Darkside.
Before I reopened Darkside, I actually had a shop on the Post Road in Orange, West Haven, Orange.
Oh, with what's his name? With Dave
Hennessy.
Yeah.
So we had opened a shop called Graphic Images. Dave and I used to live together. Like we'd both been clean together, and we're both clean again now. And he was, he had a few bucks, and he was like, I always wanted to open a shop. He doesn't tattoo.
Yeah.
It's like, but I wouldn't want to do it with anyone but you. Are you interested? And I was interested, and got a blessing from the guy that basically saved my life and merited. Like Rich,
let you go. And
he's like, Sean, I didn't expect you to stay here forever. I'm glad you got your shit together. Get out of here. You know what I mean? Good luck. So anyway, we opened the shop, and within a year, Dave falls off. And now I'm going through what I put like you through and Eric through and all the guys that work
He was coming in here and getting tattooed every now and again, and he was bragging about all these South American cats that he had coming up, and he was working with them, and I'm bringing this guy, and I'm bringing this guy, and then you bounce out. I forgot about you being there. And it was just got to a point where I'm like, dude, you gotta go. I don't want to deal with you. You're just...
He's too much.
Yeah, exactly. He's like on 11 all the time.
So once again, dude, I left there. Like, you had to leave me and take your shit and get out. I did the same. I was working out of my house, and yet another friend comes to me with like, let me help you and get your shop and get your feet back on the ground. And I had recently met this woman, who I've since married, and we've been together now for 15 years.
Right.
And she's had my everything, and she, and without her, because like remember you said like I didn't have the business end of that. I didn't have all that,
right.
And now I've kind of got a partner in this who's like good with the customers and good with managing schedules.
So you guys are working together every day.
Yeah,
I know she's in the shop. I didn't know if you guys were working every single day.
Yeah. I mean, so we're now grandparents.
Oh shit!
Yeah, I'm now a grandfather. So she spends a lot more time, with helping my daughter at home and the baby and stuff.
Right.
And, my granddaughter's now a little over a year old.
Wow, that's crazy.
And my wife took on piercing about 10 years ago.
Right, that's
so
what
she's a piercer.
Okay, yeah.
But she's like keeps the management of it and the it all together. Like
so you can concentrate. Well, even at the old shop, you used to have apartments did most of the business end of things, and then you were just signing checks for the most part. Right. That's kind of what I do here.
And working, and what's crazy? I'll never forget. Like I was in my old shop, and you hadn't started working for us yet, or maybe you just didn't. No, you didn't yet, right? And you're looking through the portfolios on the table, and you're with Joey, and you're looking at this one. Wow, this guy's pretty good. Who the fuck did this stuff? And it was me. Yeah. And he's like, I didn't even know you tattooed. I thought you sucked.
No, honestly, it's true. I didn't know you tattooed because for the longest time it was it was Eric that attracted me to the shop, and the other guys always had because Lou's kind of a prick. Yeah. You know what I mean? And he was always this too cool for school fucking wannabe dude, and it was just kind of like, yeah, whatever, dude. Like, fucking from Connecticut, who gives a shit? Because I remember the first time he came to the shop with Eric, when Eric was getting tattooed, like, he's wearing his fucking glasses, he's sitting in the front room, wouldn't even come back and say hello, and I'm like, oh, fuck this guy. Because I talked to Eric, I'm like, who's that? He's like, oh, it's Lou Jacques. I'm like, he's not going to come in and say hello? I'm like, all right, fuck him. And then that was like, that set the bar for Lou as far as I was concerned. But we've gotten close. We've gotten very close.
Lou is awesome.
Yeah, exactly. He's a piece.
But yeah, right around the time you moved here.
Yes.
I was opening up around the corner. Yeah, okay. Because it's really, you could walk from this shop to that shop.
We opened up here, and I think you had just, because we were downtown, and then we moved here, and then you opened up.
And that was 2010.
Yeah, we opened up in 2009, the summer of 2009. Yeah. So, and again, this is an area I would have never thought to, because when I was telling Eric where we were opening, because we were downtown for 6 years, and I was fed up with being downtown. It was never getting any better. It was just a shithole, and it's still that area still hasn't gotten much better.
Oh, that area's gotten a lot worse.
Well, but now they're putting this big fucking apartment building up across the street, right across the street from where we work. Yeah, and I'm like, and they think it's going to bring whatever to the fucking neighborhood, and I'm like, yeah, whatever. Good luck with that. Another fucking 10 years wasted. But yeah, when I explained where I was looking, they're like, dude, that's right up the street from the old Darkside, right? And I'm like, is it? And it hadn't occurred to me because I almost never came this way. And I drive by and I'm like, oh, fuck, that is the old Darkside. God damn it, what did I do? But there's a police annex right across the street firehouse right across the street. I'm like, we're good. And thank goodness we've been here going on 16 years.
Oh, yeah. And this block's always been decent.
Yeah, it's been bad. Yeah. You know what I mean? And when they closed Fireside, it's got a little bit more quiet. Yeah. So.
Oh, I bet it was wild.
Oh, well, it was funny. When we first moved here, there's a restaurant called Fireside right up the street, bar. And it's an establishment. It was. Yeah. And when we first moved here, it was good. The food was good. People were cool. And then within 2 years, I think it got really bad. It became a fucking coke head.
Oh, yeah.
Like, it was bad.
Yeah, it was
so
bad.
we stopped sending people there, and everybody's like, "Does anybody come here?" And I'm like, "Dude, they're not walking two houses down,
right? They'll get hit by cars.
Exactly. God forbid. They gotta walk by the police station. They're good. They're gonna stay where they're at." And
but it was pretty cool to open up like that for me, because it was a tiny little shop in a bad part of town.
Yeah.
Kind of just how I started. You know what I mean? Because it really was starting over. Like,
Yeah.
I wasn't trying to. When I reopened this shop, I wasn't trying to rebuild what you and I, what Eric and I, what Lou and I.
You're starting over.
I was trying to start over, like clean slate, because like the person that I was, that you worked with or Eric worked with, I'm not that person.
Right.
I don't want to be that, and I don't want to portray that. I just want the name, because it's
Right.
my name. You know what I mean? But that was it. And it was like starting the same thing, you know what I mean? And it has evolved very similarly. Like I have, it started with me and one guy, Dave Rachi.
Right, Dave.
Who I had met like a few weeks before I was going to open. Because once again, it was going to be just me.
Right.
You know what I mean? Because that works. You know what I mean? And then it was me and Dave. And then it was me, Dave, and Izzy, who worked for me. Yeah. When all you guys left,
he was one of the guys.
He was one of the guys who came back and tried to bail me out. And when I was over in that place in
Meriden.
No, in West Haven, Orange.
Oh, okay. That place, yeah.
Izzy came and worked with me there.
Oh, I didn't know that. Okay,
yeah,
all right.
Yeah, him and Steve Helke.
Yeah. Steve, yeah.
So we kind of rebuilt like that. You know what I mean? And Shane started working for us.
Yeah, I remember talking to him about that.
And it was just great how it's evolved. And then, similar to what happened before, we outgrew it and found a better place, a bigger place.
Yeah, you're in a much nicer space too, right in downtown East Haven and stuff.
And now we got a great crew. I mean, and it's different in the sense that, like you said, when I did it the first time, we were all like, what were we, 20?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Young kids.
I had no idea what
we
you
lived
did.
for the shop.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Now,
and back then, keep in mind too, I think back then you were making the rules that everybody eventually followed. You know what I mean? I shouldn't say making the rules, but you're fucking laying. Yeah, you're paving the way. You're laying the groundwork for everybody who comes after you. And I think that's one of the things that gets forgotten. And again, maybe the kids of today, God, I gotta stop using those fucking phrases. But maybe these guys today, they don't look at it from the same perspective because everything is so different now.
Right.
You know what I mean? They look at it as like, yeah, well, I don't have to do what you did. I can just go on my fucking phone and find 12 places right now, and I'll fucking sign a lease on my phone. You know? So there is a different perspective based on that. But I think that's one of the reasons I started doing this is because nobody knows that. And for the people who do remember, they just go, yeah. So.
Yeah, and that's what I love about you doing this is I hope that I'm not like Spiderweb, forgotten about. Like you know him, I know him. How many people know who that man is and what he's done for tattooing?
I think what I've often said with that kind of situation is the fact that there's always going to be someone who remembers it. I mean, the third one I did of these, it was with Shotzi Gorman. And Shotzi,
oh, really?
Shotzi worked with Spider for like a few years, you know? So to have him bring that up and everybody goes, who? And then the other people going, dude, I fucking remember him. And it's like, so like I said, I don't think it's ever going to be forgotten, but with the size and scale of what the business is today, does it really matter?
Right.
You know what I mean?
But there are people who are definitely interested in the history and intrigued by it.
Yeah.
As I have been, you know what I mean? Yeah. Like even when I first started, like now we're talking about your career and my career and how it's paved the way for so many things here. But when you and I first started, there were the Spiderwebs, there were the Mario Barts, there was the Big Joe Kaplan, all these guys that were innovative and expanded on our industry.
Exactly.
You know
and I mean, the amount of people like that I know is insane that I've come up with because of all this stuff.
Yeah.
You know, it's incredible how much of that is. You know.
So now, I mean, the shop's good. Like we're different. We're not 21-year-old kids who live for the shop, but we're, a handful of grown adults with our own lives, with families, with children's, with other interests that come together and create, great artwork.
Right. Other responsibilities.
Absolutely. And, and I've got Nick Trammell working with me again, who was with me on,
back then. Yeah, exactly. Like he came in shortly after I started.
Yeah. I got Marissa, who I taught.
She was one of your apprentices.
I apprenticed her when we in the transition of moving, so it had to be 10 years.
Right.
You know what I mean? And she's does amazing artwork.
So how many? So it's 5 of you there now.
So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
Oh, 7.
artists.
Oh
yeah.
shit. Okay.
So I have one guy that I'm teaching now.
Oh, okay.
And I was never going to apprentice anyone again. Like I was done because after Marissa, because I've had some very successful apprentices.
Yeah.
You're talking Eric Merrill, Ant Plaza, Nick Baxter.
Yeah.
Like back then it was like it was fulfilling.
Yeah.
To be
and
a
to see
stepping
where these
stone
guys took stuff
in guys like that's career.
Yeah.
Like you know what I mean. Like it's definitely fills me up to know that. I help them because look what they've done for this industry. And Marissa, the same thing. And then since her, I've had failure after failure after. I don't apprentice anybody, and I really try and put my all into it and really teach them because over the years, like I may have started untrained and
yeah. But the fact of the matter is, like everybody who came up in those shops were technically proficient.
Right.
And this was at a time before fucking rotaries.
Yes.
Where you had to know what a needle on a bar does and tubes on the metal tubes and fucking coil machines and know how that machine ran and everybody in that shop had really good technical knowledge of every aspect of the fucking of the business.
Yeah.
From power supplies to foot switches to armrests to the machine theory, everything. Like that was the one thing that genuinely impressed me because with me, it was similar too. Is whoever you were surrounded by, you learned as much as you possibly can from them. Because the guy who brought me in didn't teach me shit.
Right.
Yeah, they put a machine in my hand.
And that's why I never felt like it mattered that I didn't apprentice because everyone I've met that they didn't learn anything in their apprenticeship.
Exactly,
you know what I mean? Yeah. The guy was just like, give me your money and sweep my floor
exactly.
and
here's a machine. I'll watch you every other Thursday.
Yeah. So I was done with all that, a number of years ago, and a very close friend of mine who's older than me was like, and he's a good artist. You know what I mean? He was like, would you teach me how to tattoo? And if anyone else had said that to me, I'd be like, sorry, dude. But I was like, absolutely. And it's been a gift, like, because I get to spend like every day with like one of my closest friends, teaching him how to tattoo, and I've got, his name's Joe, and he's there, and he's solid. And then I've got Cole Gridley, who moved here from
that's
Mass.
right, Cole. Yeah,
he worked with Gabe, and he, up there, and he's from up that way. And what an amazing artist and person he is. And you know how it is, man. You meet people along the way, and they're just like, it just adds to the energy. You know what I mean? It adds to the creativity because, like you and I have both. We're not hiring just anybody to make us money.
Oh no, I know.
We're just not doing that.
I mean,
and some shops will, but that's not us.
No, to me, it's whatever comes out of this shop is a direct reflection of what's happening in the shop. Is the name of the shop, not just me. And I don't look at it as me. I look at the shop as being everybody here. So it's not just taking my name down; it's taking everybody's name down. And we've had a handful of people inquire, and I'm like, nah, we're good. Yeah. And I've taken on a couple of guys that were. When I did hire people, so they went like, why are you hiring that guy? I was like, because that guy is a hustler and he's going to learn. And that means more to me than someone coming in here with nothing but talent, driven, deal with a attitude and bullshit and whatever. I was like, because to me, it's not just the talent of a tattooer, it's also the person. Yeah. The individual person. So, that means a lot to me. That means almost more to me than fucking talent.
It really does because we have to spend all day with these people. Yeah. And their energy... will either increase or diminish the energy of everyone else. Exactly. You know what I mean? So it's definitely, I like people that are motivated and have them around. You know what I mean? It's just, and Dave's still with me. Dave Roger started with me over here. Yeah. My wife is still piercing and making it all stick together. Nice. You know what I mean? And and we have a receptionist, Maddie. She's, there to, and it's good to have like the whole pieces to the puzzle type of thing.
So what do you see for the future, your future? Do you see anything big on the horizon, or you're just going to steady ahead?
I'm looking to, and I know you talk about it on your podcast, like like when COVID happened, the industry blew up. Yeah. And it was busier than, I've made more money in 2020, and we were closed for 3 months, than I ever made in the other 30 years, and since I don't know, the past year or two, it's just fallen off.
Fucking
You know what I mean?
huge.
It's fallen off huge. And I don't blame that on anything. Like, it's a number of factors, but how do we navigate that? You know what I mean? And how do we rebuild from that? You know, I have, like, me personally, I'm still booked for almost a year.
Right.
You know, every day. There's no openings. Like, if, you know, it's a blessing. But I have artists that, they're family to me now, that are struggling to pay their bills because they have nobody. And they're great artists. Yeah. You know what I mean? But it's, so how do we navigate that? Like, I don't know. I'm trying to, like, find a way to, like, I don't know, navigate through this and bring in business. And it's definitely picked up. Like, I would tell you that the past few months have been much better than the previous 6.
It's been up and down. I mean, for me, this is the slowest I've been in over 30 years.
Yes.
And it's one of those situations you want to think, like, well, where does this go from here? And I'll be honest, I really don't fucking know. I mean, a lot of it's got to do with, you know, we've become so reliant on social media that it's now biting us in the ass.
Exactly.
You've got entirely too many tattoo shops. I mean, the amount of shops that have opened up between here, not even so much shops, but individual private studios between here and between me and you.
Oh, yeah.
It's ridiculous. It's like, and I don't know who these people are. Like, you don't see anything. Nobody comes out to another shop. And the only time we ever see somebody from another shop is when that shop couldn't get them in the moment they wanted to get tattooed. So they called us next, you know?
Right.
So yeah, it's a weird time. It's a weird time.
It's a weird time. You know? But it's what, you know, I look at it this way, man. Like, at our age, what else do we do? Like
there's nothing.
Right. So we got to figure it out.
Yeah, we're just tattooers. I mean, at this point, I'm in the process. We're trying to put together an app right now, me and a couple of fellas and my wife, and we're trying to put together an app that actually connects clients with tattooers. And it's not a booking app. It's just this thing called Tattoo Drop, which I should have dropped months ago. But we're in the process of getting that actually created right now. So
that's cool. Hopefully
that's something that can benefit everybody worldwide eventually, you know. But we'll see. You know, tattooers are very fickle, and they're not quick to, you know, they're not always quick to help their own. You know what I mean?
Right.
So we'll see.
Right.
We'll see. But yeah, man, I'm glad you stopped by to do this. This is super cool.
This has been awesome.
Yeah, super cool.
Yeah. Thank you.
All right. Well, on that note, thank you everybody for tuning in. Like and subscribe. And Sean, I will put all of your information, the shop's information, in the description below. In the meantime, see you when I see you.
Thanks, Brody.
Thank you.
That's been awesome.